Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रयोगाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories, Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, chapter entitled Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal. Text number 17. Shri Brahmo Vacha Uttishtottishta Bhadram Te Tapassiddhosi Kashyapa Varadoham Anuprapto Vriyatam Ipsito Varaha. Shri Brahmo Vacha Uttishtottishta Bhadram Te Tapassiddhosi Kashyapa Varadoham Anuprapto व्रीयतामीप्सितो वरः। श्रीब्रह्मोवाच उत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भद्रं ते तपस्सिद्धोऽसि काश्यप वरदोऽहमनुप्राप्तो व्रीयतामीप्सितो वरः। माताजी ब्रह्मोवाच उत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भद्रं ते वरदोऽहमनुप्राप्तो। Shri Brahmovacha, Lord Brahma said, Uttishta, please get up. Uttishta, get up. Badram, good fortune. Te, unto you. Tapassiddha, perfect in executing austerities. Asi, you are. Kashyapa, O son of Kashyapa. Varadaha, the giver of benediction. Aham, I. Anupraptaha, arrived. Vriyatam, let it be submitted. Ipsitaha, desired. Varaha, benediction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Lord Brahma said, O son of Kashyapa Muni, please get up, please get up. All good fortune unto you. You are now perfect in the performance of your austerities, and therefore I may give you a benediction. You may now ask from me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Skanda Purana, which says that Hiranyakashipu, having become a devotee of Lord Brahma, who is known as Hiranyagarbha, and having undergone a severe austerity to please him, is also known as Hiranyaka. Rakshasas and demons worship various devatas such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva just to take the post of these demigods. This we have already explained in previous verses. Umagyanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Sri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kada mahyam dadati swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Reading the translation once again, Lord Brahma said, O son of Kashyapa Muni, please get up, please get up. All good fortune unto you. You are now perfect in the performance of your austerities, and therefore I may give you a benediction. You may now ask from me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish. So in this particular section today, morning that we are reading, we are seeing that Hiranyakashipu has completed all his tapasya. And because of that, Lord Brahma has now arrived. And he is essentially, going to offer him various benedictions. So this is the theme or, the point at which we are in this particular story. So if you see, Hiranyakashipu did a phenomenal amount of tapasya. In fact, if you compare even with Dhruva Maharaj and others, he did only 6 months, Dhruva Maharaj. But this fellow has done a tapasya for 100 years or something, celestial years. Right? So he has followed the process of yoga very nicely. But what has gone wrong is the purpose for which he did it. Right? So he has done this for a purpose of trying to become immortal and eventually creating havoc in the universe. This is his purpose. The process was very good, but the purpose was highly off track. So I wish to take this theme for discussion today between process that's being followed and the purpose for which we do something. So these are two things. So when I say process here, I am restricting myself to the process of yoga, because that's what Hiranyakashipu has done. He has done a Kator yoga system. He has worked very hard on this yoga system, literally standing on one foot and hand up and whatever. Right, so he has perfected the yoga system. So there is the purpose of yoga system, the process of yoga system, and the purpose for which one does it. So Dhruva Maharaj also did the yoga system, but his purpose was very noble, it was very clear, he wanted Vishnu. But this person is not like that, Hiranyakashipu. His purpose is gone. So, just before starting this, some months ago, there was an interview of a famous Bollywood actor, I'll not take his name. So, in the interview, he was talking a lot about his lifestyle. The interview was about his lifestyle. So, he was talking about how he eats very carefully. He doesn't eat at night, he doesn't eat after sunset, how he doesn't drink. He was telling his whole lifestyle. So if somebody were to hear it, they would feel, Arey wah, the person's process is very good. He is very regulated in his eating habits, sleeping habits, everything. But what is the purpose for which he was doing it? He made it clear as well. He said, because I am 50 plus now, if I don't do this, then I will not get actor role to dance with all these young people on stage. Who will call me for that? So his purpose was that. Okay? But what he did was correct. What he was doing is correct. It's kind of recommended for everybody to do. Eat like that, sleep like that. Like Krishna speaks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So many times this happens that, so let's try to discuss this in detail. Let's try to dwell into this theme for today. Now, when I say process, I'm essentially referring to the process of yoga. I'm not referring to here the process of bhakti. I'll just make a slight difference in the two. Like there is a process of bhakti, right? Which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnum and so on. Correct? When does that come in your life? That comes in one's life only when one has understood the purpose of life is to satisfy Krishna. Correct? Only then the process of bhakti begins. If one has not understood the purpose of life as satisfying Krishna, one will not start the process of bhakti. But I am talking a step before that. If you see the Bhagavad Gita, the way Krishna has arranged his sermon to, he has spoken to Arjuna. In the first 6 chapters, he basically builds up the process of yoga. Okay? And at the end of the 6th chapter, he speaks that famous verse, Yoginam api sarvesha madgate anantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samayuktatamam mata. That among all kinds of yogis, the one who meditates on me in full devotion, he is the topmost, he says. And then from 7th chapter, he starts talking, if you see the next verse itself is, Maya sakta manaparte yoga nunjan madashreha. So he speaks about the hearing process. Are you getting it? So when you have understood, so I hope the point I'm making is clear. So there is the purpose, I'm itself confusing the words. There is a process of yoga. At the end of that, the culmination of that is the understanding of the purpose of life, highest purpose of life, which is what? To understand Krishna. And then from 7.1 onwards, Shravanam Kirtanam starts. Then it goes on, correct? So that's the theme. That's how Krishna builds it. So, what is the relevance of this particular process? And basically, what is the process of yoga itself? So when we say process of yoga, it's not just about, at one level, it's not just about all these asanas, mastering it, standing on one feet and all that. There is a whole psychology behind it. Like if we see the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is a full psychology of a yogi. How the yogi deals with the world. That is also part of process of yoga only. I'll just give one or two examples and we'll take some stories from Ramayana or Mahabharata to substantiate that. For example, all of us know the first step in Ashtanga Yoga is what? Yama. And Yama has what all? It has Ahimsa, Satya, it has Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. Correct? It has 3 things. Let's take just one item among this. Try to elaborate. Aparigraha. What is Aparigraha? Aparigraha is translated as non-possessiveness. Okay. So the commentary given is, one should not be possessive of things, people and situation. Okay. 3 things. Things. Too overly possessive of whatever things I have. People, my relatives, my father, mother, wife, brother, don't be over possessive about them. And situation also, don't be over possessive. Like this it says. Let's take from the Ramayana. Let's see, see again, because what happens when we read the scriptures, like Ramayana, etc., at one level, the purpose of Ramayana is to develop love for Ram. But there is a process also that Ram followed. How he dealt with the world. All that is part of the yoga system. Okay. So if you see, after 14 years, what does Ram do? When he's flying back to Ayodhya, he stops at Chitrakuta. Right? And he tells Hanumanji, go to Ayodhya first. And meet Bharat. Tell him that I'm coming. See his face very carefully. If you feel little bit also in his face, Ram is coming back. 14 years I ruled. It would have been so good if I could have continued, being the king. I was doing a good job only. Not that I did a bad job. 10 times I've increased the prosperity of this kingdom. GDP has increased 10 times. Right, in 14 years. A phenomenal achievement. $1 trillion has become $10 trillion now. Right? I'm doing well only. The job is done well. But Ram is coming back. So Ram tells Bharat, if you see little bit also in Bharat's face, the feeling that why Ram came back, then immediately come and tell me, I will not go to Ayodhya. Let him only rule. And then, of course, we know that when Hanumanji goes, that's not what happens actually. Bharat is circumambulating fire, thinking that now when the 14th year is getting over and Ram doesn't come, I am to enter into fire. So then Hanumanji stops him and, quickly conveys, and then immediately Ram also comes because he understands, nahi, Baba, this fellow is not like this. So at this point, somebody may ask a question, why did Ram want to do this only in the first place? Why all this? Why telling that, why send Hanumanji? Why, is he trying to test Bharat? Is he trying to test his brotherhood, his loyalty or something? No, it's none of it. It is this principle, aparigraha. Not possessive of anybody as a relative also. Don't take anybody for granted. He is your younger brother. It was decided that you will come back and rule, but still give him his space. And if he wants to rule, you have to accept that also. So see, this is a simple example of non-possessiveness of people. You are giving space to some person, right, in that relationship. And please try to understand, there is a difference between Bharat wanting to rule Ayodhya and Duryodhan wanting to rule Hastinapur. Because somebody may ask, then why did Krishna take so much apatti over Duryodhan wanting to rule? And Krishna created such a big fuss and, ensured the entire Mahabharata war. The answer to that is, see, Duryodhan was in adharma. But Bharat was ruling as per dharma only. So there was no problem in his ruling. It was perfectly in dharma. So we cannot compare it to Duryodhana's rule. See, that's the whole point. You cannot make that particular comparison. Correct. But the point here is that he is aparigraha. He is giving him space in that relationship, non-possessive. He is not just thinking that this fellow is my man only. I will make him dance to my tune. I will control my relative, my brother like this. He has to listen to whatever I say. No, he has left him. Chhod diya usko, wo relationship mein. And that is why that relationship is also with great love. So one should not misunderstand that. So it's a simple example of how a yogic principle is being followed. Okay. So when I say you have to follow the process of yoga, please try to understand, we are not talking about standing on one leg or doing some asana. See, that is one thing. But yoga is a huge package. It starts with your thought process of how you deal with the world. That should be there first. If that is only not there properly, we will talk about it, how it matters. Okay, we'll come to that point as well. So this is the first example I gave, right? Let's take another example, right? Let's take this example of Jai Jai Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagwan ki Jai, Kaunita ki Jai, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai. Yeah, let's take the example. If you take another example, like, there's another principle here. There are two principles actually, they say in yoga. One is Satya, being truthful. And in the Bahiranga Yoga of Niyama, there is Saucha, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranidhan. These seem very technical words. Tapa means basic austerity of the mind. And Satya means to be truthful. And one translation is, to face every situation courageously. Let's take one example for this. This time we'll go to the Mahabharata, come back to the Ramayana. So in the Mahabharata, if you see Krishna, after the war is over, what does he do? All the Kauravas are killed. He tells Yudhishthir and the Pandavas, let us go and meet Dhritarashtra and Gandhari and seek their forgiveness. Somebody may say, was it necessary to do that? Was it necessary? I mean, you have killed 100 of their children. See, general common sense, I would not say common sense, but most people, what they would want to do, just escape from it. Arey, kyun unko jaake milna hai abhi? If you go and meet them, then they will obviously feel bad that we only have killed them. Just let's escape this whole thing. Na? We try to escape from that reality, right, in that relation. Nobody will actually want to do that. And especially more so when you're convinced that that party only was wrong. Not only the 100 Kauravas were wrong, Dhritarashtra was the root of all the evil, because of which all this happened. Common man, most people, 99.99% people will say, let's not face this reality only. Satya ka samna hi nahi karenge hum. Krishna says nothing doing. They are our elders. Whatever it is, we have to go, fall at their feet, beg forgiveness. We have to tell them that, see, we have done this, but still, we want you, right? We are with you. Can you imagine this type of a dealing over here? This dealing very, very difficult. If you see carefully, most of us may find it very difficult to deal like this in the material world. Okay. This type of dealing is very difficult. So like this, you see so many examples in the scriptures. If you go and take each of these now, and if you think about it very carefully, you will see that this is there. Just like I'll tell you another yogic principle. Another yogic principle, asana. Now what does asana mean? Asana ka definition is stiram sukham asana. Stiram sukham asana means to be firmly and stably situated in your position. Okay? Matlab, you are not off balance. That is asana, right? Asana means what? You are not off balance. You are perfectly in balance. Somebody may say, is that applicable only to our Shirshasana and Sarvangasana and all that? No. If you see the the explanations in all the Patanjali yoga system, asana means to be stable in any aspect of your life. Okay, every aspect. Let's take an example. Ram meets Bharat in the Ramayana. This happens in Chitrakoot. In Chitrakoot, Bharat comes to meet Ram. And Ram is asking beautiful questions to Bharat. And one question he's asking Bharat is, I'll just read that out little, it's very nice. He says, my dear Bharat, are you sure that your dharma is not doing nasha of your artha and vice versa? He's asking Bharat this question, are you certain that the dharma that you're following is not destroying the artha, and the artha that you have is correspondingly not destroying your dharma? Can you ascertain me this? He's asking him such a question. Now, what is this question basically? This question is about asana only. Sthirta, balance in all the purusharthas. Because you cannot go off balance, right? You cannot go off balance in any one. That means there is only dharma to such an extent that there is no artha. Or you are so mad behind artha that you have forgotten dharma completely. And interestingly, the same question is asked verbatim by Yudhishthir Maharaj, to Yudhishthir Maharaj by Narad Muni, when he meets him. This is the Mahabharata. Same question is the same. Just once Ram is asking in the Ramayana and here Narad Muni is asking. So one may say, why they are asking this? They are asking this to ascertain this point, that are you in balance of your life? Okay, this balance is not just the asana balance. Huh? It is the balance of your entire existence, of your all aspects of your life. Is it in balance or are you gone off track? If you have gone off track, then you have to come in balance. See, this is how yogic principles are. So that's why when I say the process of yoga has to be followed by all, it has to be followed by all. No one can say that I don't have to follow these. Everybody has to stick to these, right? And if you see each of these, like you see brahmacharya, right? Brahmacharya. We all quote this. Prabhupada, when he went to Melbourne, he made this statement. If you have maintained your brahmacharya till the age of 25, your brain will be so fertile. We quote the story. What is Prabhupada addressing there? He's basically addressing, are you following the process of yoga in your life? It's in a more simple terms. Is that there? Because if that is there, that's going to be extremely helpful for you. If that is not there, one is going to be in trouble. Okay, so if you analyze the process of yoga, it's a very holistic process. It talks about, all these aspects in detail. Even I'll tell you another example from yoga. There is this whole thing called asteya. Asteya principle in yoga means, literally it means not stealing. Somebody may say, I'm not stealing now. I'm not pickpocketing somebody's money or something. I'm asteya. No, but asteya also means a very conscious consumer. That means not taking too much from Prakriti than you need. I think I told the story once, I'll tell again. I like this very much. Prabhupada, when they were building the Juhu temple, it seems there was a tree. Okay. And in the plan, they thought that, we'll just knock this tree down and, make the temple because it was coming in the middle. So the municipality or whatever, they had also given sanction to all that and everything. So Prabhupada writes a letter, I think Giriraj Maharaj or one of these people, they tell them that in our religion, we cannot cut trees. So you arrange the whole structure in such a way that the tree keeps standing. I mean, one may think, yaar, tum mandir bana rahe ho itna bada, which will last so long. Ped kaad do, 1000 ped kar sakte ho. So this asteya principle is actually a principle of conscious consumer from nature. Actually, what happened, I read this story at that time, I was undergoing a personal experience. I mean, sorry to share that, but in my own building, my parking was in an open slot and there was a tree and birds would sit on top and their droppings would come on the car. I was a bit irritated. I had written a letter to my society office that, ye, kaad do isko, mera car ganda ho raha hai. And that is the time I read this story. I thought, my God, Prabhupada was not ready to cut a tree for a temple. What to speak of, for a car, to cut the tree just so that bird droppings doesn't fall. So actually the yogic principles, if you see, like each of these principles, if you see, and if you see the lives of either devotees or if you see in our scriptures, you will see examples for these. So somewhere we need to understand this very carefully, that I have to imbibe all this in my life. Then only the process of yoga I am actually participating in. After having said this much, and similarly everything, every aspect, and we, like for example, tapa, there is one important thing of fasting. Okay, now fasting, like today is Ekadashi. So the whole principle is to reduce the eating process, correct? And focus on the Lord. See, sometimes what happens, we forget that purpose only, and we will have like, the best in town, Ekadashi, pizza, pasta, burger, everything is available on Ekadashi. Without grain, you get such variety. One may feel, yaar, ye to ordinary days is first class hai ekdam. Why? Who will do all this on ordinary days, We're waiting for it. So then the whole thing is lost. So that the process has to be followed. आपको करना पड़ेगा, तपस्या करना पड़ेगा consciously for everybody. That eating program has to reduce only on that day. One cannot just think that I'll just substitute and, I'm following. No, there is a process. That fasting is mentioned, upavas is mentioned, means one has to do it. Correct? So like that. Now, let's go into some technical things and then let's come back to this discussion. So, one of the beautiful summaries of Bhagavad Gita, let's go into the Bhagavad Gita because the Bhagavad Gita has such a deep understanding of all these concepts. And, one of my, favorite studies or the reference for Bhagavad Gita was from Sripad Yamunacharya's Gita-artha Sangraha. It's a very short work, but extremely beautiful. He has summarized the Gita like too good. Okay. So he summarizes. So I'll read that summary because this is a summary of the process of yoga. And then I will go into it. Right? So what he says is, so this is Yamunacharya's Gita Sangraha, verse number 2. He says, Jnana karmatmike nishte yoga lakshesu samskrite atmanubhuti siddhyarte purva shatkena chodite. Simple verse. Purva shatka means the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Okay? What is the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita? Yamunacharya says, Jnana karmatmike nishte. It is mainly talking about karma yoga, jnana yoga. Why is it talking about karma yoga, jnana yoga? Yoga lakshe. To reach the level of yoga. That means karma and jnana is dealt with so that you become a yogi. 6th chapter. And what is the purpose of being a yogi? Atmanubhuti siddhyate, to realize the self. Purva shatkena chodite. This is the purpose of first 6 chapters. So he says first 6 chapters are teaching about karma yoga, jnana yoga, ultimately to bring you to the point of yoga. And that yoga is what we call as dhyana yoga. And when you have reached that dhyana yoga, then what happens? You will understand the self. He stops there. He said, this is what 6 chapters are about. Okay. And, if you go, Ramanujacharya's commentary, if you see, one thing I want to say about his commentary, because when I was reading that, I did a detailed study of that alongside Prabhupada's Gita as it is. And I realized that so much of Prabhupada's Gita as it is actually comes from there. And then later we did some historical study. Then, there is that story also, right? One Western scholar telling Prabhupada that your Gita looking very similar. I mean, I was surprised that Western scholar actually has studied that. Means he studied Prabhupada's Gita also and he studied Ramanujacharya Gita also. Because it takes someone to study to say that. He had not just said like that. The reason it seems mainly is because, just like in Bhagavatam we say, right, the original commentator is Sridhar Swami. So any commentary later, nobody can cross him. Nobody can write anything bypassing Sridhar Swami. So similarly in Gita, it turns out that Yamunacharya's work and Ramanujacharya's work were pivotal in terms of Bhagavad Gita, Vaishnava commentary. Because Shankaracharya's was there, but that was obviously from a different perspective. So all Vaishnavas later who all wrote, eventually it will trace back to that. So nobody can avoid it. So that's how that whole system is. Correct? I mean, we can talk about that in more detail later, but that's not the purpose. So Ramanuja, what he does is, he elaborates this whole thing much more deeply. So for example, he basically says that, hey, look, he says that this karma yoga, jnana yoga, which Krishna speaks, this is for everybody in the world. And especially I want to say, especially when it comes to children, right? From childhood, they have to be trained in the purpose of yoga, in the process of yoga. Because the process of yoga is mandatory for all. Nobody can say, I don't want to do. I'll just tell you why. Especially in children, I'm saying, and then I'll come back to the commentary. Because if you see children, many times small children also, they will speak very big philosophy because they know many things. But actually, it has not really sunk in. It is because the parents are saying, they will just say very simply. But the question is, much, much later in life, can they actually, then only their own purpose comes out, whether they have really deeply resonating with this purpose. Okay? And in order to stick to that purpose, that process of yoga they should have followed. I'll just take one story from Prabhupada, elaborate this and come back to the commentary that I was talking. This may seem a little controversial, but nevertheless it's useful here. So there is a story about Prabhupada, this thing that there were 2 Vedantists who came to Prabhupada once. Big scholars of Vedanta. They came asking to discuss who is God. So Prabhupada asked, so who is God? So these fellows, Swamiji, we can't explain that in a few words. Come on. We need to very elaborately discuss this. It's not small subject matter. The Upanishads, Vedanta, what all they talk. They went on different tangents. So we know that story. There were these 2 Gurukuli kids. Prabhupada is asking one of them, so who is God? And they say that Prabhupada had his hand over a box of sweets. So the boy saw Prabhupada's question, saw his hand, and he understood. If I answer, I'll get one laddu. He said, Krishna. So Prabhupada said, good, take. There was another boy. He asked the other way. One he asked, who is Krishna? Another he asked, who is the personality of Godhead? Who is Krishna? So one boy said, personality, supreme personality of Godhead, ek laddu. दूसरे को पूछा, whose personality of Godhead? He said, Krishna. Another laddu. Then Prabhupada said, see, these boys also know. You've studied so much Vedanta Upanishad. You are not understand. So we all know the story. The story, what it highlights. I'll tell you what it highlights and what perhaps we sometimes miss out in the story as well. These 2 boys who were there, they knew the purpose of the Veda. Because of their association with Prabhupada, even though they were very small, they actually knew the purpose of Vedas, which is to know Krishna. They said it. These scholars, on the other hand, the Vedantists, they knew so much philosophy. They had practice also, correct? But they had somehow not come to the purpose of the Veda. Vedescha sarve rahamaya vedyo. Wahan tak aaye nahi the wo log. They were still involved only in the process of all this, following everything. This is what we all know. But I was thinking about the story a little deeply, because sometimes, we may just use the story and make fun of those Vedantists. If you look at the story a little deeply, suddenly Prabhupada had a right to chastise them for not understanding the conclusion of the Veda despite being scholars. But if you scratch the story a little bit more and you see deeply, something else also can come to your mind. That most likely, I'm telling you, I don't know the life of all those people involved, but with almost 99% probability, we can say that those two Vedantists who were there, right, they continued their whole life following the process of whatever yoga they were doing. They were scholars of Vedanta. They had not come just like that to meet Swamiji. Of course, they had not reached the culmination, but they were fixed in their process of yoga. Okay. But on the other hand, unfortunately, these two kids who were there, because we know the statistics and what happened to most of the children, most of them, even though they knew the purpose, they couldn't stick to anything. It was just a statement. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Could you actually stick to that? So, I'm just saying, if you take the story to that next level, which none of us really do, I'm just telling in what context I'm using this story, to basically say that yes, there is the process of the Veda, the process of yoga, and one has to understand the purpose, 6.47 Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Ramanuja gives a very interesting commentary, 6.47. You know what he says? He says 6.47, he says, see, there are many yogis. All these yogis, he says, one is like the apple tree, one is like the lemon tree. But he says the Bhakta who's there, he is like Mount Meru. Can you compare Mount Meru height with the lemon tree and the apple tree? You cannot. Bhakta is at another level only altogether. Okay. So when you read that commentary also, you feel, Hare, wow, what an explanation, right? Bhakta is like supersonic. He has been compared to a Sumeru Parvat, whereas these others are compared to apple tree, lemon tree, etc. But the point is, but then again, if you step back and read the whole commentary and study the Gita also carefully, you understand that, see, that process of yoga, if you follow now, that gives you that balance where later when you understand purpose of Veda and start practicing process of bhakti, then you will not, you will not face difficulties. If you think about it, most of the times, a lot of our counseling effort, everything that is there, it goes because people go off balance in life. In my own experience of 20 years as whatever counseling, if some devotee comes to a senior devotee and saying that I want to talk to you, we know very well, rarely is going to come talk to about some Acharya commentary, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, what Ramanujacharya says, Madhvacharya. It's most often like, this person said this and I'm unable to deal with the situation. So basically what has happened is that process of yoga was not. But what is the process of yoga? Okay. So that has not been followed. So the more stable that is, it's seamless. I was just thinking this Hiranyakashipu did so much tapasya, he had such capability. If only he could know the purpose of Veda, which is to know Krishna. For him, practicing bhakti is very easy. Kuch problem nahi usko regulative principle follow karne mein ye wo sab. See, later out of his own choice, he was doing sense gratification. But if you see the story, 100 years, what tapasya the guy is doing? What capability he has to stand like that and do tapasya? Correct? There are all stories where Brahmaji says even Devatas cannot do all this, man. Come on, what a capacity to do yoga. Height capacity. And we see that also. We see, like for example, 4 Kumaras, right? They become quote-unquote devotee. For them, there is no problem. Not that later they are asking, Hare, Nava Yogendra is also there in our loka. He said something bad about me. I'm struggling. No, nothing. Kuch nahi. They are so perfect in their yoga. Now when they have understood the purpose of life is Vishnu, that's it. It's like you're driving your car on an expressway in top gear. Otherwise, it's like driving in, if you go to city, Appa Badwan Chowk, you're driving a car, goodness me, it's like neutral first gear, neutral first gear, neutral first gear. Udhar hi hai. Atke ho udhar hi. Gaadi band ho jayega. Trrrr, wapas start karo. Horn karo. Bong, bong. It's like that, So, because that yogic process was never followed in life. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So let's come back to what is the yogic process, right? So, because we did speak a lot about this. So what is actually the yogic process? So, Ramanuja in his commentary again, I mean, you just have to go back to the Gita. It's not even so much about the commentary or anything. You just have to go back to the Gita. So simple thing, after speaking about karma and jnana yoga, okay, first I'll say about what is that karma and jnana yoga, and then I'll come to this particular part. In the 4th chapter, if you see Bhagavad Gita, right, if you see in the 4th chapter Bhagavad Gita, these are some verses sometimes we may not dwell very deeply. 25, 26, 27, 28, there are some 4 verses. He gives a very elaborate commentary there. He says, this is actually karma yoga which everybody in the world has to do, he says. So what is that karma yoga that Krishna is talking about? Krishna talks there, interestingly, about 13 different types of activities, which he later says in 17th chapter also. Nobody can give up all this, dana, tapa and all that. So that elaboration is 4.25 to 28. Like for example, first thing he says in 4.25 is worshipping a devata. Now when we say worshipping a devata, it's not necessary that you have to worship a devata only. Like some person may be worshipping Vishnu also like a devata only, right? As in, he just doesn't know now. Please try to understand. When the verse is saying Deva Meva Pare Yajna 4.25, it's not necessarily only a devata. Worshipping a bona fide Vedic deity, it could be Vishnu Narayan also, but without the understanding that he is Supreme Personality. Because abhi tak ye bhakti nahi hua na, quote unquote. He is only a yogi. He is aspiring to be a yogi. So he has not understood that yet. Okay, so that's one thing he says. Then he says doing fire sacrifices. That's the second thing Krishna says, 4.25. Then 4.26, 27, 28, he talks about control of the senses, control from sense objects and control of the mind. Okay, there is a very exhaustive commentary given here. So what he says is that these 3 are increasing difficulty. Controlling the senses, he says, the most easy. That is first level. Then second level is restraining yourself from sense object, because that's little more difficult. Because somebody may control his senses, but when the sense object comes, uska sab pighal jata hai. So then, so that's considered little more difficult. Third, even more difficult is controlling the mind. So we're not allowing the mind only to go in the direction. So these are all actually types of karma yoga which one is supposed to do. Karma yoga doesn't only mean, sometimes we think karma yoga means just doing your job in office or something. No, that's not what it is. It's you have to understand what Krishna is saying in the Gita. Abhi ye 5 ho gaya abhi tak. Then, in 27th verse, Krishna talks again about 5 different things. Dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna, swadhyaya and jnana yajna. 5 things he talks about. Each of these things, if you think about, dravya yajna, giving various charity. I was very surprised. If you read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Chaitanya Shikshamrita, I think it's the first or second rainfall, you will see Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about 10 types of charity. In great detail, huh? He talks about charity, giving clothes to someone who doesn't have. He talks about all that. As I was reading, I was thinking, oh my God, he started like this. He's saying, no, everybody has to do all this. You have to do all this also. So, because this is all there in the Gita, Dravya Yajna. Aapko dena padega. You cannot say Dravya Yajna, giving, So all kinds of Dravya like that. Then there is, Tapo Yajna, like Ekadashi, fasting, all this. So even from childhood, see these things, so I'm coming back to this. I'll tell you why. Because when you see children, as I said, purpose unko ज़्यादा जल्दी समझेगा नहीं. Lekin process is something you can engage in as part of lifestyle. And one has to do that. Okay. Then later when they become big, they understand the purpose more deeply. Then if they want to follow, they can. But if they are not in the process of yoga, then anything will become very difficult later. Because of regulation ही नहीं रहेगा ना body में. So that's why all this is also very important. So even I always tell this, even parents, even children, they should do some type of Ekadashi. Ekadashi as in, of course, we are not expecting they'll do Nirjala, but some control in that food thing. It's not that we have given them such a fantastic this thing. Sometimes parents feel, Hare, Ekadashi, let us give our children such a feast, they will fall in love with, our movement. Hare, nahi baba, tumne wo process ko maar rahe ho tum, aisa karke. So tapo yajna. Then there is yoga yajna. Yoga yajna basically, see, yoga yajna can be given commentary in various ways, but he gives the commentary of yoga yajna basically means to go to various holy places. He says that is yoga. Then swadhyaya and jnana. See, 2 things are there. They look little similar if you see, swadhyaya and jnana. So swadhyaya, he says, is reading the Vedic literature based on what Krishna says in Gita elsewhere. And jnana yajna means reading the various Vedangas like Sanskrit, Vyakaran, Nirukti, all that. That is considered jnana yajna. So like this, there are 10. So 10 ho gaya abhi tak. Karma yoga. And then there are 3 more also. In 4.29, Krishna says, apane, pane, juhvati. That means ensuring the prana as ahuti to apana as ahuti to prana, and maintaining the balance of prana and apana. I'm not going into the technicalities, but that is also considered as a yoga. So the commentary is, all these things, why should one do? These things everybody has to do so that their rajo tamo guna starts reducing. Everybody means I'm saying common people. We are not saying just for Vaishnavas. Any common man has to do this. Every child has to do some of these, so that the lower modes effects start reducing. You experience more sattva and so on. And see Krishna, how beautifully he takes it. See, Krishna's logic is amazing. Krishna speaks about all this in 3rd, 4th chapter. 5th chapter, how does he end 5th chapter? 5th chapter, 5.18 to 6.9 Bhagavad Gita, if you see, Krishna is talking only one theme. And what is that theme? Samatvam. How much Krishna talks about Samatvam? How much he talks about Samatvam? In fact, if we read everything that Krishna is saying about Samatvam, then we can never even try to ask this question about, because all our interpersonal issues is because we are unable to see things Samatvam. Okay, so if you see from 5.18 Vidya Vinay Sampanne till 6.9, there are so many verses. This could be an entire topic of itself only. If you see 6.9, how Krishna talks, Suhrit, Mitra, Ari, Udasina, Madhyastha, Bandhu, Dvesha, 7 categories he says. And then Sadhu and Papeshu. He says you have to be equal to all these. And what are the definitions of all these? Look at the definition. Suhrit means, he says, age is not a botheration, but he does well for us. He is Suhrit. Like Prabhupada would write, you are ever well-wisher. That is Suhrit actually. Age is not a botheration. He is our well-wisher. Mitra means what? Same age person who wishes well for us. Our friend is Mitra. But our Guru can be our Suhrita, like that. Ari, due to some reason he doesn't like me. See, Ari means he doesn't like you, but there is some reason for it. Udasina, he is neither angry nor loves me, since there is no reason to be angry or to love me. Like that. Madhyastha, by habit he is neutral. See, there is a difference between Udasina and Madhyastha. In Udasina, there is no reason to be angry or to love me, that's why he is like that. But Madhyastha means, by his own nature he is like that. Kisi ke saath bhi wo anger or ye nahi karta. Bandhu means, without reason he loves me. That is Bandhu. Like our family members are a Bandhu. Without reason they love us, literally. Dvesha, without reason he dislikes me. Sometimes we say, koi reason nahi Prabhuji, aise mere upar chide hue hai. Koi reason hi nahi hai. Why he is angry with me? I don't know why he is angry. Dvesha. Like that. Krishna is saying you have to be equal to all these people. Samatvam. So now how does the Samatvam come? So the Samatvam is coming, if you see the whole logic, 3rd, 4th chapter, if you read verse by verse and connect the whole thread, वो सब पालन करने के बाद आप समत्व में आओगे. समत्व में आने के बाद आपको योगा करना पड़ेगा. And this yoga also, again, going back to the Ramanuja's commentary that I was referring, how he talks about it is, he says every human being in this world has to practice this, come to the level of yoga. He says where he can sit down and do some 2 hours meditation. He actually says like that in his commentary. I was thinking somehow it relates to our japa, etc. But he says 2 hours you can do meditation. And he says why this is important. He says because if you don't have samatvam, then you cannot sit and meditate. So that's the whole point. Because if you are always thinking, ye mera dushman, ye mera shatru, ye mera ari, he should nash ho jane ka uska, thinking like that, and you are not having samatvam in your mind, how can you meditate? So this meditation is normal meditation. I mean, for us it is japa, but for a normal, so-called Hindu, he is supposed to do some kind of meditation like this daily. This whole thing is yoga. So when we say yoga, it's not just the asanas, it's not just standing on one leg. It starts with the psychology. I spoke about so many examples of that for the psychology of yoga. ये सब psychology practice करने के बाद you develop, and then practicing various acts also, like yajna, dana, tapa, which Krishna talks so much in Bhagavad Gita. Then you are purified of your lower modes. Then you start having some resemblance of samatvam. You are able to treat people equally. ये सब होने के बाद you can sit and meditate without getting distracted. And doing this for a long time, if you are fortunate to meet a devotee, and here 6.47, that the whole purpose of this is to understand Krishna. Purpose of whole life only is to understand Krishna. Then you will start 7th chapter Gita. Start hearing, chanting about him, and then go ahead. So, it's not just Bhagavad Gita. Even, I was just thinking, even the 11th canto Bhagavatam, if you see, there is a chapter on Bhakti Yoga. Uske pehle wala chapter, what it is? Chapter on Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga bata hai. Krishna Uddhava Samvad, if it's there. If you see, that's how the sequence is. Because nowhere the Shastra violates. So my point is, nobody can say, so that's why, 6.46, what does Krishna say before Yoginam Api Sarvesham? He says, Tasmat Yogi Bhavarjuna. You have to be a yogi. Nobody can say, I don't want to be yogi. Nahi, yoga mere liye nahi. Aapko banana padega. Yogi matlab, this whole thought process, dealing with people, whatever I said, everything is yoga, a big package. It's about how you look at the world. All that is yoga. If that is all there, then, so now going back to, my point that I was saying. There is a process of yoga, which is a huge package. There is a purpose, ultimate purpose of the Veda, which is to understand Krishna. And then actually starts the process of bhakti. So now what happens is, see, in our preaching, because mainly we are preaching to elderly people or, people who are already grown up. So we have to start with purpose only there. And that's what we do. Like session 3 device, if you see, purpose of human life. We start with that. And then we try to take them into the process of bhakti. Which is fine, which is kind of what is working around. But then again, if you carefully see, we are assuming that the process of yoga in some way is in place in this person's life. जितना वो off balance रहेगा ना उसके योग में, उतना वो आपके पास रोता आएगा counseling के लिए, परेशानी होके. Because he is frustrated. I remember, in Mayapur ILS once, our Devamrit Swami had come, he gave a lecture. Beautiful. He spoke on challenges of preaching in the first world. That was the topic. His whole topic was how it is challenging to preach in Australia. So he started the talk only like this. When we give a talk there, first we define what is family. That is my first slide, he said. He said, family means a man and a woman live together for 40 years without separating whole life. And they have children, their own children. And, they're very clear. So he was saying that this is first thing you have to say. And the questions people ask, hey, is it really possible that a man and woman can live like that for 40 years together? It is possible. You'll get some Indian or some devotee and say, see, they're living for 40 years. Oh, really? Yeah. So he said, this is how the preaching starts. So I was hearing this and thinking, oh God, it's like, so what is happening is you want to talk about the purpose of life, which is to understand Krishna and give them bhakti. But that process of yoga, which is supposed to be there in people's life, that perhaps is so much absent that you have to literally start from this level. You have to talk all this also. And then you hope that this fellow will survive later. Okay? So that's why, going back to my example, which I was saying earlier of Prabhupada, meeting those Vedantis, and there's children. So as I was telling you, especially for children. So as I was saying, see, for adults, it is understandable. We tell them the process first, purpose first, which is to understand Krishna, give them process and start. But especially if you're dealing with children, it is mandatory to have yoga. That means to have that right balance. Right balance in everything, in their education. There was a recent research done. It was done actually with very good intentions. Some devotees are part of a government initiative where they were studying various schooling systems, traditional schooling systems in India, etc. And they came up with the conclusion that many of the, not devotee per se, but many of the Vedic or whatever, traditional schooling systems are there. The government felt that they overly focus on either dharma or moksha. That's how they come to. But they were saying that, see, we need this balance. We need to ensure that, the artha also comes in there. So see, because that's yoga. When Krishna says that yukta hara vihara, said that yukta hara, we only shouldn't think in terms of eating. Khane mein nahi ho. Har ek aspect mein aapka wo balance hona padega. So especially when it comes to children, one has to see how from childhood that process of yoga, how you look at situations in life, how you deal with people, correct? We saw how Ram deals with his brother. We saw how Krishna deals with his, we saw some 2-3 examples of that, right? So these things have to get embodied in the system, right? And then slowly, then also give them some sadhana, give them some kind of, some tapasya, engage actually them in some charity. They should also see. See, many times what happens as parents, we just online do transfer to a temple or something. And, child also should be engaged. Like if you see in Krishna's pastimes also, you will see Nanda Baba or somebody engage Krishna in giving gifts. Somebody will say, क्या कर रहे हैं? आजकल तो यार एक auto mandate, SIP बना दो बस. मंदिर को ज़्यादा रहेगा महीने में. So that whole thing is that dravya yajna. You have to feel that you are giving something. Especially, children, they have to sense, that experience is also important of dana, dravya yajna. You gave something. Like we see that, right, in stories, in Krishna stories also we see. Nanda Baba, they would sit Balaram and Balaram's birthday is there. Rohini will call all the Prabhupada. सब दान देने में बच्चे को ही लगा देते. He should also give. You should know, we are supposed to give, man. It's not that everything is for my enjoyment only here. See, that you are following Bhagavad Gita 4.26. Krishna is saying, Dravya yajna karo aap. Swadhyay karo, jnaan karo. Ye sab karte rehne ka. This is, child, they will have to do that. And then you can hope that when they become 16, 18-year-old, then you can start talking to them deeply about purpose of life. Then it will start hitting them. What is this? It is easy for a 4-year-old to say a laddu and say Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the question is, at 18 also you should say that with equal conviction. And if you say that at 18 with equal conviction, it means that your process of yoga was followed properly, due to which now you are able to be situated on the purpose of life, which is to understand Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any question or comment? If we have 5 minutes, I don't know, 5 minutes, so we can just take one. Narayan Rishi.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So, Prabhuji, a couple of things. I think you started talking about or defining purpose and process and purpose. I think you contrasted them also and explained about how process is also equally important.
Yeah.
And then you gave this very nice example of the two Vedantis and two boys with Prabhupada. And what I have understood based on this discussion is, although we in our institutional setting, while preaching and practicing, start with the importance of purpose.
Yes.
However, not having followed the process, as in yoga, of doing all the dravya and all of the things that you mentioned, may not situate a person towards later stage of life. May or may not, not following it may not guarantee that right now I know the purpose, but I may not stick to it because I have not followed the process. So that's what I have understood. And regarding that example, how do we contrast it when we say, again in the institutional setting, because ultimately for us, always remember Krishna, never forget. And all of our practices that we do from morning till night are around that, chanting, attending morning program. And because we have been trained in such a way to look at only the purpose, we also naturally carry it to our children, that you come with us to temple, participate in the program, attend lecture, we'll feel happy if they are sitting in the kirtan, playing mridanga or whatever. Those are the things we only expect. We don't, to some extent, we do not even know what is the process that in our lifestyle we are supposed to follow. When we talk about donations and things like that, we even say, you have to kind of donate to the temple, that's the first thing. Other things you can kind of bypass or whatever. So this is one thought process I wanted to check with you. The other thing is, how do we contrast this example of the Vedantis and the boys with Prabhupada versus Yogic Brahmanas and their wives?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's a long question. So let's take it one by one. See, the first one, I think the point is well made that I'm not even suggesting that there is something drastic difference to be done. It's but normal for everyone to get their children to temple and participate in puja, etc. But I just want to say that, when a normal person comes even to Krishna, he is worshipping like some deva only. As in, if you see that 4.25 Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying that you have to engage in worship of some deity, right? See, who is a bhakta? See, bhakta, first of all, bhakta is actually a level of achievement in one sense. See, these are externals, we are wearing all this, but it's a level of consciousness. You should have reached that with those qualities, correct? Otherwise, yes, everybody gets their children to temple, dance, do kirtan, do this, that. But they're still engaged they're doing the activity of bhakti, but they have not really understood that very deeply about their purpose. So those things have to be done only. Nobody is saying that, that is not to be done, etc. My only limited submission is that your view to life and every aspect of life, career, money, relationships, everything should be yogic. There is a yogic way in which you view these things. Like how Ram and Bharat are talking about ruling the country. It's a yogic process of thinking. He's saying, hey, come on, you don't ensure that too much dharma is, not giving artha for the kingdom. They're talking all this. So there's a yogic balance, which has to be part of lifestyle. See, these are also not even taught as lectures also. So even to children, it's not that we give them a bhashan on what is yoga. They will not like it only. They don't even sit one minute. It has to be ensured in the lifestyle. In the lifestyle of Ekadashi, in the lifestyle of Janmashtami, that you have to experience some tapasya. You have to ensure charity. Okay. Of course, we will continue giving charity to temple. That's not the point. My point only was that just like, children are also engaged in giving something. That feeling is, it's an experience, ultimately charity. See, you and me, for us, when the SIP goes and a message comes that 10,000 rupees was debited, हमको लगता है कि यार मेरा 10,000 गया, आपको तो feeling तो आता है कम से कम. बच्चे को कहाँ से आएगा? He should also have that feeling. That's why traditionally these things were done. So, this whole yoga process talks about all this. So and my main point was, with elders, yes, you have to start top down only. Because abhi kahan you catch a 25-year-old man and say that, no, it's like too late everything. Directly tell, hey, Krishna Supreme Personality man, come on. And, give him, then what happens is, see, as I said, we are hoping that there is some yoga in his life. Yoga means what? Balance. If the balance is there, to that extent on top, when he's doing bhakti, he will be steady. To the extent that balance is crumbling, to that extent he will keep crumbling. Because वो खड़ा ही नहीं रह पाएगा ना, उसको platform ही नहीं है, उसका platform stable नहीं है. That platform is the platform of yoga. Okay, so this is my humble point. Now coming to the second point, see, Yogic Brahmins, there it is very, very clear. Now if you look at those Brahman Patnis, right, they were not superficially understood the purpose of life. Please try to understand. You can't compare that like to our small children, 3-year-old child also, we have taught him Krishna Supreme Personality. Oh, aake bolega idhar, Krishna Supreme Personality, got it? Which is nice. That innocence is there. We love the child, everything. But those Brahman Patnis are not like that. As in, they have, in a very evolved stage, they have understood the purpose of life is Krishna. That's a very, very highly evolved stage. Now, as far as the Brahmins are concerned, obviously, they were stuck in that. They had not come to that purpose. So there the contrast is different. Because and those Brahman Patnis were not an unstable life or something. If you see in India, even till some years back, balance of people was very good only. And let me also put this point, the more the balance of that yoga is in a life, to that extent people will find it easy to take to Krishna consciousness also. Because in Krishna consciousness, we are just hoping, chalo mala do, shuru kar do abhi process of bhakti. Correct na? Read scriptures, come to class, worship deity, seva karo, shuru ho jao. We are hoping, uske जीवन में balance है. Balance नहीं है तो गया काम से. So that's a challenge. See, so that's why when Prabhupada also says that Indians are so close to Krishna, what does that mean? What does it mean? Why is it? So because in general Indian society, this outlook in somehow was there in people's life, though it is unfortunately reducing because self-absorption has increased now. People come to temple also, it's all about self-absorption. How I take the selfie, mine with the Lord or whatever, so like that. So these are the points over here. So Brahman Patni, I would not take that example because there they are extremely evolved in everything. Their balance is perfect, purpose is well understood, bhakti mein bhi ekdam aage. कुछ समस्या ही नहीं आएगा उनको life में. कोई counselor जरूरत नहीं उनको. They are not going to cry anything. My neighbor, my mother-in-law said this. I am feeling so bad. She said my dal is burnt. क्या ऐसा बोल दिया मुझे. छः. कुछ नहीं, उसको कुछ प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं आएगा जीवन में. उसका बैलेंस परफेक्ट है अभी. वो एकदम फर्स्ट क्लास जाएगा. It is like that, driving on expressway on 5th gear. Yeah. I think we have to end because it's time up. So maybe, I don't know, we have time for the last question? No?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Prabhuji, before introduction, in second chapter, Lord Krishna given most of the answer to Arjuna's question. Immediately introduce the Sthita Pragya.
Yeah.
So, is there any connection between what you today said and the Sthita Pragya Lord standards of Sthita Pragya?
See, actually what happens now, that's why second chapter in some way is called Contents of Gita summarized. See, in second chapter, what is happening is, Krishna speaks about almost everything in the beginning itself. Actually, literally speaking, that's why Arjuna got confused only at the end of second chapter. Jayasi Chetkarmanaste, he asked, 3.1. Hey, what are you saying, man? Should I do this or that? Literally there the discussion starts. Sometimes they say in preaching, the real preaching starts when the fellow starts asking question. Till there it's also, so if you see in the second chapter Gita, all points were set together. Every whole package was given. Oh, it confused him. So Krishna had to start from basics. So in second, what Krishna does, he starts from Karma Yoga. He takes you Sthita. That Sthita Prajna is the perfection stage of Jnana Yoga only actually. As per the commentators. They say Sthita Prajna. This whole thing, this is about after doing Karma Yoga, when you're steady in Jnana Yoga and you are, unwavering. That same thing, equanimity you have achieved. Krishna says, Sukha Dukkha Same Kritva. So all those verses onwards, Krishna is basically talking about Samatvam. And after that Samatvam, you are now very deep in your, understanding and whatever. And then you are meditating also. That's why Apuryamana Machala Pratishtam, all that comes. So there Krishna has taken the concepts a little too quickly. But yes, it is connected to what we are saying in a way. It is still that Sthita Prajna, we can talk about Sthita Prajna as a devotee, because ultimately a devotee is also a jnani, a karmi and a yogi. See, we should remember, like devotee means he's also a yogi, he's also a jnani, he's also a karmi, everything. Like if you're staying on the 10th floor, you're also 9th floor, 8th floor, 7th floor, sab ho gaya tumhara bhi. Isliye 10th floor pe baithe ho aap. So like that. But as such, the commentators say he's talking about a jnana yogi, perfection stage like that. Yeah, I think we have to end. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bhau. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.